Hello, fellow writers. I'm Lewis. That over there is Tolkien, and you have found the Scripturian Society.
Welcome, everybody. I'm going to copy Carissa's dramatic pauses.
I was like kind of going for ASMR, but I don't have the confidence to whisper. So
whenever somebody
No.
asks me to whisper, I do exactly that. I'm like, I totally forget how to whisper.
Like, how does one speak quietly? And then I end up shouting, and I'm like, that wasn't it.
Yeah, I don't know how to whisper I can't whisper on command. I don't actually know for sure if I can whisper at all. I also hate whispering. When I would get in trouble in public as a kid, my mom would get really close and whisper in my ear, and I hated it so much.
Yes, I feel that.
Yeah, it's the worst. And so I think I'm just like, I hate whispering. Yeah. But anyways, that over there is your host, Carissa Harlow, aka Lewis, and I am Asha Rourke, Tolkien, the Tolkien to her Lewis. Welcome everybody back to the Scripturian Society.
I kind of thought you were about to say the Tolkienator. I was like, wow, I love it.
I am Asha Rourke, also known as the Tolkienator. You're welcome, everybody. My presence is appreciated.
Yeah.
Oh,
my presence is appreciated.
My presence is appreciated, clearly. Well, I mean, if I'm going to call myself the Tolkienator, there's a certain level of confidence that has to come with that.
Yeah, fair.
I am the Tolkienator. Tolkien is in his grave like,
like, I don't approve of any of this.
I don't think I'm okay with this. I feel like Lewis would appreciate it a little bit. I feel like he'd be like, nah, it's kind of funny.
Yeah. You would mock him with it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I would ask you what you've been doing this week, but we also just recorded the previous episode. So
yep.
Is there anything that you held back? Any secrets you want to divulge?
Did I hold anything back? It's been cold. And I've been cold. Does that count?
Maybe anyone who doesn't live in your state, perhaps.
Yeah.
On that note, we got a warm front here, and it's been amazing, and I've been so happy. And then every morning I get up early to see Javi off, and give him a kiss and lock the door behind him or whatever. So I open the door and I'm like, oh, it's warm outside. Oh my God, this is so nice. And he goes, yeah, cold front's coming in tonight. And I was like, no, because I fell into a depression last week when it got cold again. Like, I don't do well. I can't do the back and forth. Like, if it's going to be warm and stop tricking me. And I prefer the warmth. So then when it gets cold again, I'm like, I hate everything and life is meaningless. So now it's going to get cold again. So I will see how my sanity holds up this week, basically.
Yeah. I only like cold if it's accompanied by rain. Then I love it. But otherwise, why?
I like warm rain. We can just stand out in the rain and be like, I'm not even cold. I'm just wet.
I don't really care as long as I'm in the rain. Yeah. If I freeze to death, who cares?
Who cares? I would care. I think our listeners would care.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Would you guys care? Let me know.
Reach out. She needs the encouragement.
How would you react to my death? Would you celebrate? Would you not care at all? Or would you mourn?
Celebrate. Do you have some enemies I don't know about?
I don't know.
Would you celebrate? I'm trying to think if anyone would celebrate if I died. I feel like some people wouldn't be unhappy about it. I don't know if they would celebrate. I feel like they'd be like, another one bites the dust, moving on. Like, they'd be cool with it.
Yeah. It's kind of like, I know this is, a trend and it's well meant and everything, but when people die and then they have the celebration of life, and I'm like, is this not kind of like celebrating their death? Yeah. It's a little strange sometimes.
It's a little strange. I did tell Javi I want my funeral to be everyone has to come wearing a Hawaiian shirt. If they don't show up in a Hawaiian shirt, they will be given one at the door, and they are to play Beach Boys the entire time. And I do want there to be food. I guess it's kind of a celebration of life, but the point is really just that I want to laugh from heaven. I want to see everybody walking in, and I want a stand-up comedian. I want there to be a stand-up comedian at my funeral.
I'm just picturing like super fancy dressed people in black having to put a Hawaiian shirt over their fancy dress.
Yep. And there's a stand-up comedian up there next to the casket. Although I told Javi that I want to be sealed in a pressure proof glass container and sunk into the bottom of the ocean.
Nice.
I think it's probably going to be very expensive, but I stand by it. I want to be.
That's what you want. It's what you want.
They'll call me like the Snow White of the ocean or something, and divers will come down to see me. Say hello to your Auntie Carissa.
Hello.
Hello, or just walked onto camera for anyone watching?
I'm thinking you should get buried in a mermaid tail and then sink to the bottom of the ocean, and then people will find you there.
Hell yes. Flora, get down. You're messing up my computer. That's an amazing idea.
See, for my funeral, I want people to be really sad. And I know that sounds
so
really
like the anti-me funeral.
Yes, I want people to cry and mourn and wear all black. I would love if some of the women wore the cool black veils, like you do when your husband dies.
I agree.
I want all that, and then I want to be buried in the family plot. So simpler, sadder, but I feel people can get past it faster.
That's true. I don't think my family has a plot. Like if I was going to be buried, honestly, I don't know where.
Yeah.
And I understand that the ocean thing is very expensive and unrealistic. So most likely I will be cremated, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
But then I want to be like, okay, then plant a tree in me. Plant a tree in my ashes, because I think that's awesome.
In your ashes?
Yeah. Hey! Exactly. But, in my ashes. But
get it? Because her name is Ash, for those of you just tuning in somehow.
Yep. It's true. Okay, people keep trying to FaceTime me while we're recording, and I just texted to say I'm recording. This is always what happens. Nobody reads my text messages. Also, does this happen to you? Because this happens to me. I don't nap very often, but when I do, inevitably, it's when like 10 people decide one after the other that they need to contact me, or somebody sends a million texts to a group chat. So I lay down, I get a text, and I'm like, oh, annoyed. So then I close it so it'll go away and it won't like open and make the sound again. And then I drift off to sleep, and another one wakes me up, and I'm like, you're
right as you
me.
fall asleep. Yeah.
You like swipe again, and then another one, and you're like, I give up. I'm so angry now. So angry now.
Oh my gosh. I think we used to do that to Marianne a lot. She would complain about that. She's like, stop group texting at 5 a.m. And I'm like, no.
Sorry, no. Well, so you can also like mute specific conversations is the thing. Or you can mute them for a certain amount of time. My phone used to mess up where I would try and mute it for an hour, and then it would just never turn back on, which is annoying. Now I can mute stuff for an hour, and it effectively just stays turned off for an hour. But it makes me mad to have to do it at all for some reason, even though these people have no clue that they're interrupting my nap.
They don't know they're doing it.
But it's weird because it's like the powers of the universe combined to stop me from taking a nap. Because I'm like, this only happens when I'm trying to go to sleep. The rest of the day, the rest of the weeks of my life, no one wants to contact me at all.
Just when you're napping.
Just when I'm napping.
That doesn't happen to me, but I stay up very late. And so every once in a while, I will remember that I need to send a text at night. And so I'll just send it because I'm like, no one's going to get it. I can just go to bed. And then I will lay down and try to go to sleep. And inevitably, the people are awake too. So they text me back. I have a cousin and I have a friend who's a nurse. So she takes the night shift. And so both of them are up at night a lot. And every time I text them right before I go to bed, thinking they will be asleep too, they always text me back. And I'm like, I know I did this to myself, but please stop.
That's so funny.
So I'm responsible for my own pain there, but
I do that with Snapchat a lot. I don't know why. I just assume I don't Snapchat many people, and the people I do, it often takes them days to respond. And so I don't usually think that they're going to get back to me the night of, but inevitably they do, or they get back to me days later at like 11:30 p.m. when I'm falling asleep. And then I'm like, and it's like
never like reasonably a couple hours later.
Yeah. And I get like a bunch of buzzes because they send like multiple snaps because I sent them a bunch of snaps.
Yeah.
So I'm like angry, but I'm also like, I did the exact same thing to them. It was just days ago. So
yep.
I don't know what the etiquette is anymore. There's no real etiquette. I could just silence my phone. I'm just scared I'm going to silence my phone and then miss like a phone call of like some family member in distress or something.
Yeah. I feel like the good rule of thumb is that if everyone can just acknowledge that we don't have to immediately respond to texts, then you can send them whenever you want.
I agree. I think that's very true.
I need to apply that rule.
Yeah, I think so. I think I need to start leaving my phone on silent more often. Javi's phone is always on silent, but that also makes me angry because he rarely responds to my texts in a timely manner. But if he texts me and I don't respond within a minute, he's like, well, F me, right? Like he'll literally text that, and I'm like, as I'm replying, and I'm like, are you serious?
Like, be patient, dude. Jeez.
Yeah, seriously. But then he'll take hours and hours to respond. And some texts he simply never responds to. So then in person, I have to ask him, and he's like, oh yeah, I saw that. And I'm like, well, the question remains. Like, you still have to answer it.
And your response
your response? It's so funny. He doesn't seem, does anyone else out here experience this? Like, I will send him something like a TikTok video, and I have no indication, he gives no indication that he's seen it. And so then when he gets back, I'm like, hey, did you see that TikTok I sent you? And he's like, yeah. And then I'm like, then no response. So it feels like he's lying. So I'm like, what did you think about it? Did you think it was funny? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, you didn't watch it, did you? It seems so suspicious, right? It seems so suspicious. But he's like, no, I did watch it. I promise. And I'm like, why didn't you say that you'd watched it? How do I know that you watched it then? And he's like, I did. Why do you need me to text you to tell you that I watched it? And I'm like, because I have no evidence that you watched it. It seems like you're not lying to me. It's so funny. I'm like, you can't, or he'll be like, yeah, I already saw that text. Why are you telling me again? And I'm like, because I have no way of knowing that you saw it. And he's like, well, I did. And I'm like, then acknowledge it. And he's like, I'm acknowledging it now. And I'm like, because we're having this conversation you don't want to have.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Whenever people send me like a YouTube video or a TikTok or something, I try to respond with like a reference so that they know I watched it. You know what I mean? And so sometimes you send me TikToks and I like don't know what to say. I'm like, it was 4 seconds. I have no references. But then like my cousin, so I have 2 cousins who are accountants, and there's I guess this show about accountants. It's like a comedy. I think it's on YouTube or something. And so one of them sent it out to the family, and she's like, this is my life right now. And so I watched all the way through the video. And then at the end, there was this joke where this girl's like, I'm just trying to be audit. I can be. So I texted that back. I was like, I'm just trying to be audit. I can be. Ha ha ha. It was like, nice. Now they know that for sure that I watched it. And I feel like
really
I've done
going the extra mile.
I am.
I usually be like, ha ha, LOL, or I'll like tap it so it puts a heart on it. Because I'm just like acknowledging I have seen and watched it, and I want you to know.
Right.
You're really going the extra mile. You're like, not only did I open it, I watched it and perceived it. I really processed it.
I internalized it. I have taken it into my personality now.
Oh, that's so nice. There's got to be a middle ground here somewhere. Javi is way off. He's not even on the ground. He's like in a dark dungeon somewhere else.
He's not even in sight.
He's not even in sight. And he's just like, what is the most remarkable about it is that he just doesn't get it. We go over this so often, and he's just like, I watched it. And I'm like, how do I know that you've watched it? And he's like, 'cause I did. And I'm like, unless you send some kind of acknowledgement of having received it, I don't even know if you've actually received it. What if my text didn't go through? Because I have no indication that it has reached your phone, much less your brain.
Ash, this is like the most like Ash has trust issues evidence I've ever heard. You're like, did you see the video? And he's like, yes. Tell me the truth.
Well, he doesn't respond to any of them. So how am I supposed to know? I feel like when I send him videos, he just doesn't open them. I honest to God think he doesn't open most of the videos that I send him. And because he never acknowledges them in the moment, I don't feel like that's crazy. Like, how am I supposed to know that he's seen a text if he doesn't reply to the text?
Yeah.
Or be
I
like,
mean, at least a little laughing emoji would be enough.
Exactly. Or even like a thumbs up. I don't care if it's passive aggressive. At least I know he's seen it.
At least I know he's getting my messages.
Exactly.
This is her husband, by the way. They live together.
We live together.
We see each other every day.
It's just that like weird. I think if it weren't like the fact that he does this with videos, and then also when I say, so like, I'll be like, hey babe, could you pick up milk on the way home? Right. And then how do I describe how this conversation goes? My brain keeps trying to shut off because this just honestly blows my mind that we keep having this conversation. I'll text him something like, hey, could you get milk on the way home? And then I'm calling him and I'm like, hey, did you see my text? And he's like, yes, why would you think I didn't see your text? Why would you think that I don't pay attention to you when he hasn't replied to the text?
Right.
So I'm like, how am I supposed to know that
You could be busy.
Exactly. Maybe you just didn't see, you got caught up. That's my assumption. I don't ever assume he's trying to ignore me. I just assume he hasn't seen it. And then he gets like really annoyed. He's like, stop telling me things I already know. And I'm like, how the hell am I supposed to know? So then
that you know it.
Exactly. So then I apply that same like situation to like when I send him TikTok videos, which I think might be different because that's when he's like, yes, I watched it. And I'm like, now I don't believe you ever about texts ever.
You've lost all credibility.
Yeah, I feel like he has. I don't know. I just listen. Send some kind of acknowledgement. If you're like, wow, my girlfriend really gets upset when I don't text her back about stuff. It's not that she's being controlling. It's that she literally has no idea if you read the text. So she doesn't know if it's something she's going to have to repeat in person or not.
Yeah. It's still in her mind as something you need to know. So until you respond, she has that in her head.
Yeah. So either respond or then bring it up when you get home. Because if you don't, she's going to bring it up again, not because she's hassling you, but because she assumes it has not been, she assumes you have not seen that or talked about that topic. And she still has that topic she needs you to talk about with her.
Yep.
Yeah. I think this makes a lot of sense, but I also have trust issues. So there's a combination going on here.
Yeah. It's all the things.
Oh man. People are silly. Anyways.
Book recommendations?
Yeah, book recs. I guess I could have saved I did 2 book recs last episode and I could have saved one of them for this episode. I didn't think about it.
I didn't save any. So let's see if I can look at my bookshelves. Can I recommend The Sisters Grimm? Yeah, I haven't done that yet.
There you go.
Read The Sisters Grimm. It is I wanted to say the book of my childhood, but that's Harry Potter. So this is the book of my between Harry Potter and YA hood.
In the hood.
Yeah, but one of them is called Tales from the Hood, and it has Red Riding Hood. That's great.
Cute. That is it's a great series for middle grade readers, or if you just want like some nostalgia, some throwback. It does have some Percy Jackson vibes. We covered it when this comes out. It'll be a few weeks ago on That Pretentious Book Club. So go check out that episode when you read it if you want. And Carissa joined us over there, so it was a good time, and it's a very fun book.
I like reread the book, right, to do that episode. And I said to myself beforehand, you do not need to reread the whole series, just read the first book. And especially because I had books from the library that I was like, they are due tomorrow. You need to finish them.
Oh my God.
So I finished the one earlier today and I went to the library and I returned it. And then I was looking at my shelves and I'm like, crap, I'm definitely going to end up rereading all of them.
Nice. I want to reread Percy Jackson, but I also want to reread all the Sentinels of New Orleans. Like that was my book rec last episode, was the first book in the Sentinels of New Orleans series. And we're covering that on That Pretentious Book Club soon. And it's like a series of like 6 books, I think. And I want to read them all so bad. Like I like what we have coming up on TPBC, but I like Sentinels of New Orleans even more. And I want to read all of them again. And I'm also just kind of like, could I just like quit my job and all my other responsibilities to read this series? Is that justified? Because it feels justified.
Gosh. I would love that world. I think this might just be my year of rereads, because I think almost all the books I've read this year so far are rereads. And okay, is it C.S. Lewis that said something about like, if a book is truly good, you'll reread it once a year or something? It's like you'll know you love a book if you reread it. And I'm just like, C.S. Lewis, I read too many books. If I reread every book I liked every year, I wouldn't read any new ones.
No, absolutely. That's so funny. I do that. I do seasons of rereading and also rewatching, but not typically at the same time. This last year has been reading largely new books and then rewatching old shows. And then hopefully this coming year, I am trying to get into watching shows I haven't watched before. I've been watching Modern Family. I never watched that. It's very funny. It's a really good one. Yeah. And then there's How I Met Your Father came out. So every Tuesday there's a new episode. There's Dollface, which is a really funny like girl power show. So I'm trying to make myself watch new shows this year, which means surely then I can reward myself with the comforts of rereading books I've already read 100 times.
I think that's fair.
No one invited you into this. Stop doing that. Get out. Yes, it's Javi.
I hope it's Javi because you're looking up. So it's either a very tall stranger that you are not concerned
No,
about
it's
or a
Javi.
ghost.
He came in here with a sloppy attempt to seduce me.
Ah, I can't see him, so I don't know how bad it was.
It was really bad. You don't want to see it. It wasn't an attractive attempt.
Javi, this is my time with Ash. Go away.
This is Carissa's time with me.
Wow, Roger.
He says, wow, Roger. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Put him in his place.
She says, good. Put him in his place.
Oh gosh, don't tell him I said that.
He's going back to playing his video games. That was the last attention I'll probably receive for the entire evening. Because the new Destiny dropped today. No, his coming in here to poorly seduce me was a poor attempt, because that was going to probably be the last of my interactions with him before I go to bed. He just wants to make sure that he was like, no, I tried to get your attention. Like, no, I tried to interact with you. You were busy. I think he does that sometimes when he's like,
yeah,
I haven't been playing video games all day. I tried to like hang out with you a time when he knows that I'm busy and can't.
Mm-hmm.
Real sneaky that way.
Yeah. I posted a video on TikTok and it was fully supposed to be funny, right? So I'm a big reader, obviously, and my cousin, who we're the only children in the family, so we kind of like pair up at family events, right?
Aww.
And he is really into video games, and this has been like all our lives. This is our thing. So we've had like, you know, just for fun, but also kind of serious discussions about which one is better. And so I made a TikTok video about it, like this argument, and you know, it was supposed to be funny, and I got a lot of people responding, not a lot, maybe 2 or 3, that were like kind of offended and being like, well, actually, this is why video games are better. And I'm like, I don't really care. I just want to, like, you know, talk about this funny thing between me and my cousin. And then this other podcast, this book club podcast called Bookends with Friends, and they're very cool. They've, you know, been interacting with me on like TikTok and Instagram and everything. They responded to the same video and they were like, you know, I think I would be more into video games if they would turn books into video games instead of movies. And I was like, I think that might be the only way I would ever get into video games.
That's the key.
So someone get on that.
That's funny. The Witcher,
The Witcher was exactly,
and it was a great video game. I watched Javi play like all of The Witcher, and it's totally a game that I would play myself. So fun, so interesting, and you can really tell that it came from a book. I totally feel that way. I like video games. I'm just so picky about them for that exact reason. I do think
I just like things like Pac-Man. So it's like modern video games are like, I know that's too much for me.
I downloaded like a bunch of organization games on my phone today because just like cleaning gives me a kind of like peaceful high. So do these little like organization games. I have no idea. My personality consists of paradoxes and opposites, because I am like,
I was just gonna say, you're so weird. You're like, I love to clean. I'm like, sometimes I go a long time between cleaning things.
Yeah, no, I
get no joy out of it.
I love cleaning. I get really stressed when I'm so busy that I can't clean. But it's not that I'm stressed that there's so much cleaning to do, I can't get everything done. I'm stressed that I can't get to the cleaning. But I know I come across as a really chaotic person, and I am very chaotic in a lot of ways, but I'm also like, I like the tile matching games. There's a game you can download where you just like untie like knots that have gotten
like the
tangled
satisfying
up.
Kind of thing.
Yes. Yeah. There's one where you have to like sort the colors out of a bunch of different jars into different jars so they're all the same colors. And I did it for like an hour today. I was just like, oh my God, this is amazing. I was just like, my brain was so happy. I love that kind of stuff.
That's awesome. I play Angry Birds, and I also have a little bird that I am raising in the Angry Birds game. So
in the game, I was like, I didn't hear about this. You have a bird?
It's like, this game is like me angrily throwing birds at houses and pigs, and also nurturing this small baby bird into adulthood. But she's never going to fly away because I keep feeding her apples. So I have to feed her. And it's just really great. I told my parents, I'm like, this is your grand bird. So
it's like your Tamagotchi.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like this game where I'm simultaneously nurturing and destroying. And that feels very accurate for me. So
that is so funny. I think the only real video games I play and have played in the past, I played a lot of Ratchet and Clank when I was younger. I played some Sonic the Hedgehog when I was younger. I am currently playing the Fairy Tail video game right now based off the anime. It's very fun. It's turn-based. A couple Final Fantasies that were turn-based, and Genshin Impact. You would probably like turn-based because if you don't have all like the video game skills to like run around and like fights, like Genshin Impact is like you have to like click all the buttons and do all the different maneuvers and stuff like in the middle of the fight. Whereas turn-based is basically like did you ever play any of the like the Pokemon games? Because I still played those when I was younger, like the old Game Boy Pokemon games. No.
Okay, I never had a Game Boy.
This is so sad. I never had a Game Boy Color. I had a Game Boy Advance and I loved it. It was like that translucent purple plastic. And we used to have to like, like blow into where you put like the little card or whatever because it would get dust and stop working.
Right.
God, the good old days. But those are also turn-based if you've ever seen like clips of them. It's where like your character has a set of moves. And as you go throughout the story, you can gain new ones and change them out and get like, you could get like items like potions or whatever you could add. And then you have like, it could either be one single player where that's the only character and like your opponent gets a turn and they attack you with something and you don't know what it is till they attack you with it. Then you choose how you want to respond with one of your attacks.
Kind of like a card game, like Yu-Gi-Oh kind of works.
Yeah, it's more like that. Yeah, because that's also turn-based. Yeah. And then Fairy Tail and Final Fantasy, it's like team turn-based where it's still single player, but you have a team of
I
characters.
Get it. Turn-based, like everyone takes their turn, not like you're spinning in circles. Got it.
No, yeah, like everybody takes
a
turn. Yeah, and
got it. Yeah.
So Fairy Tail and Final Fantasy are both, they're still single player, but they're turn-based. So you get like this cast of characters, which is really cool. And each one has like a different background and different powers and like strengths and stuff. And so they could all get it. You would probably like Final Fantasy because it's turn-based, so you don't only have to have a lot of video game or any video game, honestly. And the cutscenes are great and it feels like you're reading a book. Final Fantasy is known for their storylines being like amazing and their art being gorgeous. And so you would definitely like Final Fantasy. You probably wouldn't like Fairy Tail as much because I really like it because of the anime. But yeah, anyways. I agree. If more books were turned into video games, I would have more content. I'm actually struggling because I'm looking for a new video game to play that's multiplayer because I need to make more friends and I don't have that much time, which means video game friends is a great option. But I don't like any of the multiplayer games I'm finding. So if anyone out there has a suggestion for a good multiplayer video game that does not require a ton of skill, let me know. Reach out. I want to know. I'm really looking. Nice. Yeah.
You're really trying.
I'm really trying. Anyways, what's our word of the week?
Our word of the week is Lacuna. Lacuna. It's exactly what I was thinking. I was singing it in my head before we started. I was like, Lacuna Matata. It has nothing to do with Lion King though. So it is an unfilled space or interval, a gap, a cavity or depression, especially in bone, or a missing portion in a manuscript or book. It has many meanings.
Ooh, does have many meanings. Interesting. So
essentially any unfilled space or missing piece, especially in bones and manuscripts, apparently.
Interesting. But you could also be like, oh, my puzzle has a lacuna. I lost one of the pieces. In a more abstract sense, I guess, since it's supposed to be bone or a manuscript, which are very specific.
Yeah.
That's so
It's
funny.
very strange. I don't know why those two, but
I would be interested to know the origin. Like, what language did lacuna come from? It doesn't sound Latin, but
it doesn't. Where did Hakuna come from? It's African, right? It's Swahili.
Probably, I think so.
Is that right? Is Lacuna Swahili?
I don't know. It sounds like Hakuna, so that's the most that I know. Some linguist is like, please stop now.
Like rolling over in their graves everywhere, and all the living ones are like, gosh, this is the worst.
Yeah. we have like literally crossed the the time threshold. Everyone is mad at us.
Time continuum.
Yeah, there we go. The time continuum. Yeah.
I don't know root words off the top of my head.
I have been doing my Italian on Duolingo again, and
yeah,
I just have to say, God, those Latin languages are just so great because every day I quote unquote learn more words, but it's also words that if you're familiar with language at all, you're like, it
already
is
know
so
them.
easy to infer what this means. It's so nice.
It's so true.
And then all you have to do is remember the root, because then you can like, when you see the word in Italian, you're like, duh, it's that, because it comes from that root, and it's the same in English. God, I love Latin languages. It's so helpful. But I also love Russian, which is not a Latin language. So
yeah, I think I would learn Russian if the different alphabet didn't scare me, because I'm already struggling with French, and not only is it a Latin language, it's a language my family speaks, and I'm still struggling with it.
French is so much harder than Russian, because Russian, like their sentences are more familiar. Their sentence, like their structure's more familiar. Yeah. The structure's more familiar. The sounds are more familiar even. Really the only thing that's challenging, or that could be challenging, is the alphabet. But once you figure it out, and it's very easy to figure out. Yeah. Like once you have the alphabet, it's easy and fun. Yeah. I think it's fun. I tried to learn French, and of all the languages that I've tried to learn, and there's been many, and I've made significant progress in a lot of them, French is so hard. I never get past like level 2.
It's just so hard to pronounce. So like, I think I'm really good at reading it so far, and like coming up with the words to write it. But speaking it, I'm like, wow, I've been learning this word for months now, and I still can't say it right.
I cannot speak it. I cannot read it. I cannot write it, because it's like they like just scrambled together a bunch of letters and were like, tossed them out, and they were like, aha, it is a word. And you're like, none of those letters go together. And they're like, you're right, we just won't pronounce a bunch of them. And you're like, no,
they're like, these consonants don't count, but you must include them. You're like, why?
Exactly. This is my biggest problem with French. Such a shame. Although I mean, spoiler for Sentinels of New Orleans, there is a attractive undead French pirate, so he does make French sound very sexy. Yep. So if you need some motivation, there you go. Have you read the Sentinels of New Orleans series?
Yeah, I have.
Okay, I couldn't remember, because I was like, your family is like Louisiana French, right? Cajun French.
Yes. Cajun French. Yeah. So I think I read at least the first 4. I don't think I finished it.
So good.
Because like you didn't have the books or something, because I borrowed them all from you. So
yeah, you should finish it. Yeah. Did you like it as someone whose family is Cajun French? Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously I don't live in Louisiana, so I don't necessarily know like how accurate, but yeah, all the like little references about like the food and stuff. They were enjoyable. Fun, so
nice. Yeah. Nothing was glaringly out of place.
No. That's nice. It seemed consistent.
So. Yeah, that's nice. I love that. In the Tiger's Curse series, I did have a lot of cringe moments with them. In the first book, there's an Italian character, and my family is Italian. And even though I'm only like a quarter Italian, I grew up like going to Italy and like knowing that side of the family a lot and like speaking Italian. And so it hurts. Like it makes me cringe. And I'm also kind of like you, where I'm like, I'm not really in it, so I can't fully claim it as mine, but I know enough that if it was openly cringe, like you'd know. And it hurt me deeply. So I always wonder when I read about books that have like a very specific culture, I'm like, is this accurate, or how accurate is this? Right. That makes me happy, because I love the Sentinels of New Orleans. Yeah. Oh my God. So many phone calls and text messages. Why am I so popular? Silly people. Oh man.
This little like, I don't even know how to describe that laugh. It was just like, there was like no expression on your face.
Mom was saying that she tried to flirt with her date, like she sent it like a flirty text, and that she got crickets in response, and then she sent a screenshot of her like text, and I'm like, it's so mild, like her little flirting is so cute and mild. That's what my laugh was for. Yeah. Anyways, do you want to introduce our theme for this episode?
Yeah, so let's see how well I can explain this. We're going to talk about, I guess, fundamentally exposition, but really more specifically, like in a series, when you're writing books in a series, how do you catch readers up on events that have happened in past books without it coming across as like clunky or cheesy or weird? So this is specifically for series, but I think it's really important. I think I don't know. I have so many thoughts around my head right now. I think fundamentally, this is what bothers me. This is what I don't like and what I think you shouldn't do. And I don't know if Ash will agree with me on this because I've never said this to her. I really hate it when books in the series will just start out with like a summary chapter, right? So as in, it's just like, here's what, like in TV shows, when the beginning is like, here's what you missed last week, right?
Yeah.
It's that kind of a thing where they just sum it up. I really hate this. And I know it's convenient. And so I'm sure a lot of readers like it, but
I don't. I hate it.
It's annoying primarily because you as an author are going to inherently end up giving something away.
Yep.
Based on the details you decide to include, readers are going to know those are going to come back. And that can ruin twists or surprises. But if you add everything, then it just drones on. And then we're left with like, well, why did I need to know this later on? So I really don't like those.
I honestly think, and this might make some people mad, I think it's sloppy writing. I think when you do summary chapters, I think it's sloppy. I think there's always a better way, always, and I don't take it back, a better way to do it. There's ways of, you can deliver, summaries and exposition in much more subtle ways. You can, do like throwbacks in dialogue, throwbacks in like thought moments. You can deliver it throughout the first couple chapters. Like it's okay to not do it all at once. I always talk about Sentinels of New Orleans series, but this is just because I accidentally picked up the second book instead of the first one. And with that one, it reads like its own first book. And the first, the book, every book in a series should ideally have an opening chapter that feels like that. And she straight up refers to stuff that happens in this book in that chapter. Like basically saying stuff like, we know this character because of what happened last time. Like she's like, the undead pirate that I owe a favor to, I was afraid about when he was going to collect, and or something about him ever since I saved his life. And these are great ways to like kind of hint at what happens. And I think part of the reason that the author is able to do that so effectively is that she doesn't get caught up in like making sure everybody has all the details from the last book. Like she really only gives you the bare minimum and maybe even a little bit less than you actually need to have context. Like you only need to give the tiniest amount of information about the last book, just enough to give your readers context to understand what you're doing in the second book.
Right.
They don't remember, they should go back and read the first book.
I know. And this is true too. It's like, I think authors do have somewhat of a responsibility that if you're going to start a series, you kind of owe it to your readers to get it all out and in a timely manner. So if you publish book 1 and 2, and then it's 3 years until book 3, I think that's on you. I think that's too long. I think a year, maybe a year and a half is really what should be between books.
Yeah.
And if readers need to go back and reread, if they need to save them until all this is what I do. I just wait until they're all out and then I buy them and binge them. Whatever they need to do, I mean, even looking on Google or Wikipedia or whatever for summaries is great. If you just need a refresher.
Yeah.
But
I've definitely done that.
Yeah. But fundamentally, I think you need to be writing books that are exciting enough that people will remember what happened, at least the gist. That's like your job.
Yeah.
And 2, you do need to be writing those opening chapters in a way that references what happened very naturally.
Yeah.
So like, think about like a book and the chapters in an individual book. When you're in chapter 20, you're just naturally referencing things that happened in chapter 15 or chapter 5, because even though people know them, you're referencing them because you need to give them proper context. And that's really how your first chapter in book 2 or book 3 or book 4 needs to work too. Just reference things naturally. Your character is going to be thinking about, their emotions about things that happened. They're going to have certain people around them. They're going to be maybe reminiscing or grieving or whatever. And that's the time to really lay down those details if people have forgotten. And I do think if you wrote a good book to start with, readers will remember enough that just name dropping things and giving little details will jog their memory and they'll be able to follow along.
Yeah.
So if you're doing your job right, you shouldn't need that summary.
I agree. I think a good way to think of it, and even to practice, as the first chapter of any book in your series should really just be a continuation of the last book. So like maybe before you like call it quits on your first book in the series and you're moving on to the next one, maybe just go ahead and write another chapter and just save that. And that's what you're going to use for your first chapter in the next book. Because And that's exactly, again, I'll say it for Suzanne Johnson, because she does have this like, I mean, excellently done. Her transition from book to book really does feel like you set one down, you pick up another, and you feel like you're reading the same thing. Like this is the same book. There's nothing jarring about it. You can't even tell that she's delivering exposition. It's so smooth. So if you guys are looking for a good example of that, you can even just like read her first chapter, like samples, like just like the first chapter of each one, and you can see how well she does it. But I think a good way to practice that, and even maybe to actually apply it, is to just add one more chapter and just make it, you're moving into the next part of the story, and that'll be your first chapter for the new book. Because like you said, like even when you're writing like all in one book, like in chapter 20, you have to reference things that have already happened.
Yeah.
And
even though readers know that, they still need to know which specific instance you're talking about.
Exactly.
Sometimes.
And by context, they will know things and you won't have to explain. And I think it's tempting to think like when you're working on, books, continuing books in a series, that you have to give them context again. You don't. If you've given them context in the first book, you're done. You've given them context. You don't really need to re-give them context. That's like Carissa said on, hopefully your book was good enough that the important stuff stuck enough that the context will transfer. If not, they can reread or they can look up a summary. I've done that before. But it's not on you in your preceding or following books to keep re-giving context, because it's very boring.
And you don't want to over explain because, well, first of all, I guess technically you could just skip that summary chapter, but people like me, like I'm kind of obsessive about it and I have to read it anyway. And then I'm just like, gosh, I just read this. I'm so bored with this.
It's true.
But whether you're binging or it's been, a year or two between reading books in a series, that first chapter should really be hitting the same. And if you add too much summary or too much exposition, it's not going to be able to do that. People that are binging are going to come into it like, yeah, I know this just happened. And people, maybe it's helpful for them, but I don't think anyone really likes reading exposition of things they already know. No,
it's not, even if they read it a year and a half, 2 or 3 years ago, it's the exposition's not going to hit the same as the first book did, because we don't read books for exposition. We read books for the story, for being immersed in the story. And you can't be immersed in exposition. Like it just doesn't work.
Yeah. But yeah, like you're saying, I think a good strategy for that, I mean, it depends on your writing style. This is what I do when I write series, is that I write them all at once. So not obviously in like the same day or anything, but like I finish book 1 and then before I go and edit it at all, I go to book 2. Yeah. And if you can kind of do this, at least get, a few chapters in, maybe halfway through, or maybe the whole thing, then, by the time you come back to edit it, by the time you come back to write more, it's so fluid from like the first book to the second book that it's going to read very smoothly like that. And so, I mean, if you have, 2 seconds between the events of book 1 and book 2, or if you have several years, there's still going to be making similar kinds of references and thinking back on things that happened. Like sometimes books will skip past grief because not that grief is boring, but you can only do so much with it without it just getting really depressing. So especially in fantasy books, they'll like skip past a few months so that people are in the recovery stages of grief. And that can be great, but they're still going to be thinking about it. They're still going to be, maybe they're traumatized from it or missing them. Little things are going to remind them of that person. So you don't need to come out and say, remember how so-and-so died, or remember how so-and-so is missing. You just need to give your characters those reactions, show changes in them if it's been a long time, to indicate that that's what happened. And if it's a short period of time, then you just need to have them acting as naturally as they were in the last chapter of the previous book.
Yeah. The events of your first book do not happen in a vacuum. And the effects of those events are not limited to that first book. They will continue to ripple out through the rest of the series, or at least they should, because that's how real life works. So even if you're all the way, someone's died, even if you're all the way past the recovery stages of grief and you think that you're fine, life has been permanently altered in certain ways because of that, in certain ways that have to go noticed. And the same for, that's not doesn't just apply to like, tragic things and character deaths, but that's true of, like big character changes or motivations or political changes in the world or whatever else happens. So I think just really keeping in mind that everything that happened in your first book will should have a ripple effect that will continue. And that can also help with continuity from book to book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you have longer series, so like Throne of Glass is a longer series. I mean, I guess 4 books is longer than most. So like Aragon or The Mirror Visitor or, City of Bones, all the Cassandra Clares, like by the time you get to 3 or 4, people are reading them because they liked them. And so they're probably retaining a lot of details, right?
Yeah.
So the further you get in the series, I would think the less you have to recap. Yeah.
I think so.
It's more likely people are binging them, but 2, it's more likely that they're still reading book 5 because they liked books 1 through 4 enough that the world is really ingrained in them. And because they've had all of that world building, it's just at the forefront of their mind, easy to access at that point.
True. Yeah. If you have people still reading your book after reading your story after book 3, they're invested enough that they are going to have no problem going back and checking stuff out if they forget context. Although it's very unlikely at that point. I feel like that they're going to have an issue with context. But if they were to, I think that they probably wouldn't feel like that's a you problem as an author. Most likely they're going to just think, oh, I need to go back and check this. I didn't catch that.
Yeah, I've never blamed an author for that.
No, not if I've in like past book 3 and I'm like just excited about it. At that point, it's hard. You have to really betray your readers to lose them past book 3 because they've dedicated a lot of time and emotional effort to your book.
Yep.
But yeah, and I think you can kind of tell too, because often in series, you can pick up the first book. You could even start from the second book and pick it up and kind of like figure out where you are. The third book, it's a lot less likely, but you could still possibly do it. Past the third book in any series, you'll be lost.
Unless that's an episodic thing. So if it's like murder mystery, like Agatha Christie's Poirot books, you could read those in any order.
Yeah, Nancy Drew, The Sisters Grimm. If it's an episodic, you can pick it up, but most aren't. So if we're not talking episodic, then books 1 through 3 you should be able to pick up and kind of get the gist of, even if you don't have context. Like, you still want enough of that exposition snuck in there that you could figure it out along the way. Past that, you don't really need to worry about it, I don't think, because books 4, 5, and 6 of series, since
people are lost, that's their fault.
Yeah, people are lost. That is not your problem at that point.
It is really funny when I was at I think I was in upper elementary school. I think it was 5th grade. And I picked up the second Percy Jackson book at a Scholastic book fair. I was like, ooh, this looks interesting. And I started reading it. And I kind of got this sense at the beginning. I'm like, I feel like I'm missing something. Did this not print a chapter or something? But I read it all the way through. And then later I saw The Lightning Thief on a bookshelf somewhere and I recognized it. And I was like, oh yes, that wasn't the first book, it's a series, and that's why I read all of them.
And that's when you've done it right. That's exactly what I did with the Sentinels of New Orleans series today. I picked it up and I literally read through most of the first chapter before I was like, hang on, wait a second, is this isn't there's something that came before this. But her exposition was so natural that it was delivered so naturally that I could have just been background. It might have not even been like from a whole other book that I loved.
Right. And it was just character building. Or
exactly.
Something.
Or world building or background delivery. And it was just so naturally done, which is, I mean, Percy Jackson is the same. Like, when you do that, like when you pick up a book that's like the second or third in a series and you don't immediately go, oh my God, I'm missing something. You just kind of get a sense you might be missing something. Oh, that's amazing. That's like, you have found a masterpiece as far as book transitions go.
Yes, I do love it. So I don't know, I guess on the flip side, I'm not sure if this is an exception. Do you think middle grade books or younger books are different? Because I'm thinking, not that kids are dumb, but kids sometimes forget things more easily. So I'm thinking about the Sisters Grimm, and obviously I love these books because I already talked about them a little bit. And I'm pretty sure that at least for like 2, 3, and 4, there is kind of like a series of paragraphs in the first chapter kind of catching us up on like the world and everything. First of all, it's world building. So I think you do have to sometimes like build in little details of the world to just remind people of what's going on. But it does sum up a lot of the plot from the previous books. And I wonder if that's a middle grade thing or a Michael Buckley thing or a good or bad thing, you know?
I feel like it's just a writing style thing. So maybe a Michael Buckley thing. Because I mean, Rick Riordan wrote for middle grade too.
Mhm.
And he also included like world building details and contextual details and book to book details, but he just did it so smoothly. I don't
Yeah.
recall ever hitting like multiple paragraphs of it. I think it's just
Right.
a writing style. I do think you can get away with more exposition like delivery like that in middle grade, because
Yeah.
middle grade readers aren't reading necessarily for, you know,
The writing style.
And all they have, honestly, they have lower standards, which is
Yeah.
not bad. They're kids. That's
Mhm.
totally fine that they have lower standards.
Yeah.
As they get older, and if they continue to read, they will inevitably, have
Developed that standard.
yeah, they'll start to develop that standard. But even with kids, you still want to keep it short. Michael Buckley seems like he would probably keep it, like you said, like to a couple paragraphs.
Mhm.
It's hard to picture. I only read the first book, but it doesn't really seem like his style to do like a whole chapter of summarizing.
Right. Yeah, it's not like the whole chapter. It'll, start and then like partway through it'll be like, here's what you missed last week kind of a thing.
Yeah, exactly. And like you said, his are really episodic. Rick Riordan's weren't. So part of that is just in the nature of, if you're writing an episodic series, but that has an overarching plot line, like that one does, then
you just need to catch them up on that overarching plot line.
Yeah, exactly. Then you have to, like, that makes, especially for kids, that makes sense, because you're not going to really expect kids to like remember all that much, because they're doing a lot of things.
Yeah.
Their brains are doing a lot of things
so much, and they just can't hold all those details.
Yeah, exactly. So I think middle grade is a little more flexible in a lot of ways, but I do think if you can do like the seamless delivery like Rick Riordan does, that's great.
Yeah.
If you're doing episodic, you have more wiggle room with how you deliver it.
Yeah. I'm thinking too, do you remember like the Magic Treehouse books?
Yes.
It's been so long since I've read those, but you could pick those up essentially anywhere in the series.
You could.
And you knew what was going on. And I don't remember, but I assumed that it was explained at least a little bit at the beginning of each book to just kind of catch you up in case you were starting on book 10.
I have no memory of it. If there was exposition, I don't remember it, simply because I don't remember how the Magic Treehouse came to be or anything. I just know this series was titled The Magic Treehouse. So I assumed they use a magic treehouse to go on adventures.
That's fair. That's a good assumption.
So, I mean, in that one, maybe there was exposition. I don't really remember, because for me, like the title of that series was exposition enough, which is also kind of like the Sisters Grimm has that vibe. Percy Jackson and the Olympians. I think like
that's true.
The series wide titles for middle grade, and regardless, that's a really great way to really quickly catch people up on what your series is about. But that's especially for kiddos, it's useful when it's something like that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And like series of unfortunate events too, right? Like
exactly.
You remember things have been bad for a while if you're on book 10. So
so there you're like, I think this is a series where unfortunate things happen a bunch.
Right.
Yeah,
it's a good assumption.
That those titles are really great, especially for middle grade.
Yeah. Let's see. I feel like I had one more point. I think fundamentally I'm just annoyed. I saw this on TikTok and people are talking about it, and I don't know. It's strange because sometimes it's hard to separate the writer from the reader in me. And I just know fundamentally that's a bad thing to do writing wise, but I think readers sometimes like having the summaries like up front, but I still think that's not a good plan.
Yeah.
So
it's not.
I don't know. Readers out there, do you like these? Because I don't.
Do you? Because I don't. I have a hard time picturing liking it, even not as a writer, just as a reader. And like maybe as a kid, it wouldn't have bugged me as much, but it would. I think it would really bug me now. I think because I've seen so many seamless transitions. Right. So my expectations are very high now. So maybe as a kid, I wouldn't have noticed and it wouldn't have bugged me. But I can't go back to when I was okay with that. Yeah. Right now, I'm not okay with that. I would rather reread the book or look up a summary than have that like disappointing reaction to the first chapter being lots of summary material. Yeah. Even if you're just like, it's just exposition heavy. No, it still shouldn't be exposition heavy.
Yeah. Like, yes, it is, but that's not a good excuse.
Yeah. No, it still needs to be a seamless transition, a step into the next phase of the story. It should feel like stepping into the next chapter, not into stepping into a different book.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. Is there anything else to say about that?
I don't know. I feel like we've been very clear. I have very hard opinions about the way that summaries and exposition are introduced, because it is one of the things that will make me close the book and decide to stop reading it, is if it's really expositionary. I'll just be like, I'm done now. I'm not gonna.
You know what else is a good example of this? I think I'm afraid I'm going to say this and people are going to be like, that's not what happened. I think Game of Thrones did this. I think George R.R. Martin just jumped right in, and he has a bunch of point of view characters, and some of them are new in each book and some of them are old from each book. And so with each character, he gives sort of a seamless summary of where they are and why they're there and where how far they've come.
Yeah.
So if you have a lot of point of view characters, don't try to do it all at once, I guess would be another piece of advice. Don't, try to catch it all up under one character.
Yeah.
Give each character their recap essentially, but again, in as seamless a way as you can.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Even if you're just like third person with lots of characters and you don't write specifically from perspectives, you can take, like basically like when we're like, what's this character doing now? And you can use that to be like, and here's how the events of the last book brought them to where they are now, basically. Right. Like you don't say that, but you show how that's the case. And you can do that with all the different characters who were in the last book. You can even do that with like current events going on in their society. These are all excellent ways to kind of recap without recapping, because no one actually wants a hard recap. Yeah. You don't want it unless you haven't read better. If you've only ever read hard recaps, you're probably cool with it.
You don't know what you're missing.
You don't know what you're missing. There are way better transitions out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I think that's true. Yeah. Now I'm thinking about like putting newspaper articles or like text threads at the beginning of a book to catch people up.
Hey,
I would be cool with that. Yeah.
I'd be cool with that. Yeah. Because it feels like a natural like reaction to what happened in the book. It's a continuation. Exactly. It's an effect of, not an explanation of. Hey, there we go. That's how I'm going to try and think of it. You want to use effects of, not explanations of, to remind people about what happened in the last book.
Absolutely. We pinned it down. I feel good about that.
Me too. We nailed it.
Woohoo. Nothing left to say. Yeah. I don't know. Do you have anything more to say?
Actually, no, I don't. And I don't think I'm going to top that.
Yeah. Let's end on the high note. Okay.
Yeah.
With Lacuna Matata. I don't know.
Lacuna Matata.
We should make that a phrase for we've already made our point the best way we can. Let's move on. Lacuna Nothing's missing.
Matata. I love it. I'm writing that down too. We're really coining important phrases today.
I love it. I don't know if it makes sense because lacuna means that something is missing, but it's an oxymoron.
But Lacuna Matata, because we're not going to worry about that lacuna. We're just going to matata that lacuna. Lacuna Matata.
Lacuna Matata. I love it. Put that on a t-shirt.
Absolutely put that on a t-shirt. That'd be amazing. I'll ask our designer, my sister, to work something up for that.
I would love a sweatshirt with that on it.
I know.
All right. Just gonna dream about that now.
I know. Anyway. I'll ask her today if she can do it. That'll be fun. Anyways, we just talked about writing in the last episode, so we've kind of already given our writing updates. But for this week, is there anything else you want to say about writing and writing updates?
No, I sent you my book. Have you started it yet?
No, I have it unopened because I want to start it, but I was in a depression last week, and so I did not. My plan is to start it this week because I'm feeling better.
Cool. That's a good mentality to be in. Yeah. But I mean, until you give me feedback, I'm nothing. So just kind of doing this body world building for other stories.
So your writing update is that you're waiting for me to open the damn file.
Yeah. Get on it, Ash. No, I'm just kidding. There's no rush. I don't want to rush you. I want your honest opinion, not your rushed opinion.
I really want to read. The thing is, I'm really excited to read it. So I want to like read it because I'm ready to enjoy it, not because I'm like grudgingly like, oh, I said I would do this. I have to do it, because I actually really am excited about it. And so I want to be in a good headspace when I read it so I can actually enjoy it. Because I've been waiting for this. I'm excited about it.
This is my treat. Yay.
It is my treat. So it's kind of in there is my like mental health treat. Like when I like it kind of like my brain chills out a little bit, I'll be like, and now we can have a glass of wine and we can read this book from Carissa in the bath. Although our bath is growing mold here, so maybe I'll have to go use my mom's bathtub. The office won't do anything about it. Apartment living is really fun.
That's fun.
Yeah, isn't it?
Great.
We had to leave my last apartment because of mold, and also because they tore down our walls.
Yeah, I remember that.
Telling us. Yes.
Has someone been here? Why do you ask? Well, a wall is gone.
Well, multiple walls are missing and I can see the rafters.
Yeah.
So I'm just curious. Yeah, that was rough.
Just me.
No, just me. They're like, I don't see it.
looks normal to me. This
And
is
then
how
I
you
was
found
like,
it.
hey, is there mold? And they were like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, it's just that there's like a heavy duty tarp taped to the floor, ceilings, and walls on one side of the room. And they're like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, well, you see, I unzipped it because it had a zipper, like a hazmat thing on it. And I looked through and there was mold all over the walls. So I was just wondering.
Wow. So I'm just wondering, am I hallucinating from the mold, or is there mold?
Or is there mold, perhaps? Yeah. God, apartment living is fun. Send us your worst apartment living stories.
Yeah.
Hopefully we're going to get out of that soon. This is not really a writing update, beyond to say that my brain is very preoccupied with life things right now. So it's also kind of hard to write because right now my brain is like, we're going to move into a house and I've got to do all these projects because it's like the house needs quite a bit of work. So we're just trying to get through like the final stages in the closing process. And of course there's been all these complications because what is life but one giant complication? My brain space.
Why not?
Why not? But my brain space is very taken up with like life transition stuff and I want to write. And I think when we get settled in the house, I think I'm going to be really excited to write also because I'm going to have my own office.
I was going to say excited. It'll be cool for you to, cause the story you're working on right now is like sort of new, to like write most of it in that same new place.
Exactly.
Have, like,
I kind of feel like
there.
Because I'm so in transition right now, I feel like whatever I write now is going to have a very different tone than it's going to have in another month or two. So part of me is also kind of like, do I force myself to sit down and write when I know I'm going to have to rework the tone of it anyways? And for me, rewriting for tone is really hard. Rewriting to match tone is like one of the hardest things you can do because it's so abstract. So part of me is like, maybe I just
don't do that to yourself. Just wait.
I think I'll just wait. Which is a bummer because I was like, I'm making progress, but that's also why I'm working on my Italian because that's something I can do. And it's kind of inspiring in the sense that the book is set in like inspired by Venice basically. And there's a lot of like Italian elements. So that's fun. Plus language stuff is fun and it gives my brain a break from all the other stuff. Like it's kind of like my games where I actually really enjoy doing it. Like it doesn't feel like work. So but it is technically still progress.
Right.
So it feels productive, but without being work, which is the sweet spot.
Yeah. That is absolutely the sweet spot.
100%. Yeah. So that's my like writing versus non-writing update.
Cool.
Yeah. Could you hear my husband
I can hear
shouting? I would also like to point out that he walked into the hallway and made a fart noise with his mouth earlier. I don't know if that came through on the mic, but that was not me. I swear to God, it was my husband doing that. Okay. I didn't know if it came through because sometimes like you could hear him shouting from the game room with the door shut.
Yeah.
But he was in the hallway when he made the fart noise. So I was like, who knows what this mic picks up?
It picks and chooses.
It picks and chooses. And then Javi like did this creepy ass thing around the corner who's like just around the corner with his like creepy smile.
Like a Joker smile.
Yeah, it was creepy. It looked like a horror movie because he just his head appeared and then like really smoothly slid out of like frame. And I was like, well, I'm unhappy.
Like now I'm not sleeping
like
tonight.
That. Yeah, exactly. So anyways, if you guys want to hang out with us during the week, if this was just not enough Carissa and Ash for you, we don't blame you. We understand. We are charming and delightful beings. You can hang out with us on the social. So you can follow us on Instagram at the Scripturian Society. We post lots of like fun, like writer, tips and tricks and updates and fun memes for you guys during the week. And by we, I do mean primarily Lewis because she really handles our social media. And same on TikTok. That's also pretty much all Lewis. But that's all fun writer videos and stuff. So if you want a little giggle, you want some encouragement as you write, go follow the Scripturian Society on TikTok. If you guys have episode ideas, some stuff you'd like us to talk about, you can message us on social media, or you can email us at contact@storysirenstudio.com. That's our production company. You can also go to storysirenspoductionstudio.com and you can, or is it storysirenstudio.com? I should figure that one out, huh?
What did you say the first time?
Story Sirens Production Studio. I think it's
studio. I don't think there's production in it.
Yeah. Let me redo this again. was wondering when I was going to mess that up. Yeah, because the official name on like my taxes is Production Studio, but it's just Story Siren Studio. Okay, if you guys have episode ideas or something you want to hear us talk about on the pod, you can email us at contact@storysirenstudio.com. That is our production company. You can also go to our website, storysirenstudio.com, to look at our merch, to learn some stuff about us. I'm going to stick with that, to learn some stuff about us. And you can even join our Patreon. It is also Story Siren Studio, unsurprisingly, but the writers group is free. So if you guys want to chat writing stuff, how to do summaries well, how to teach Ash to speak English like a writer should actually speak English, we can have all those fun chats on there, all for freezies. I don't think there's anything else I'm supposed to say. Oh yeah, I was going to say... Did you hear that again?
No.
Oh, it was Javi yelled. Who knows what he yelled? Think what was I going to say? Oh yeah. If you guys like the episodes, you like what you hear, you want to hear more of us, go give us a 5-star rating if you don't mind. It's one of the only ways that we know that you guys are here, and it's just nice to see what you guys like. You can also leave a review for us. Knowing what you guys like really helps us, craft our episodes to give you what you want to hear. And same, if you guys have stuff that you'd like us to change or stop doing or add to, you can always email us or message us, because we want this to be a writers group where everybody gets something good out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My voice did a weird thing. Yeah.
It didn't even sound like you cleared your throat. That was so cute. I don't know what that sounded like. That was
I don't either.
That was good. Anything else that you want to say to the listeners this week?
Nope. That's it.
Cool. Awesome. Well, until next week then, everybody, keep writing.
And we'll see you on the next page.